there's coffee. If not, then we'll go to the nearest cafe. So there's a lot of different things that are going to drive that decision-making process, that we're going to have, an if, then, otherwise, otherwise, otherwise. That is what we're going to try and build in. So to kind of keep going with this little example, if you're in Canada, say hello, or England. If you're in Germany, say guten Tag. If you're in France, say bonjour. It's sort of an interesting situation because of the fact that you've got these multiple possible outcomes. That it's not simply going to be, if one value is this way, do this, otherwise we're just going to move on to something else. So it's one value that we're checking, but it could have different entries inside of it. Now, we've already seen this syntax here, that we've already seen the, where are you from, and then country equals. We could also have a to upper,
Yeah, but that basic logic of,
Exactly.
Somebody enters a value, if we check if their values equal something specific, react accordingly.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just being pedantic up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to do that very basic if, and away we go. We've seen that. We've already seen that. But now what we want to do is we want to check to see, well, are you in Germany? Or are you in France?
Yep.
And so this is where the elif or else if comes into play. Now, here's the most important point to keep in mind about a compound if statement like this. The way that if statements work is that they will execute the code associated with the first thing that tests as true. So if we bring it back to the slide here, if it turned out that you had entered in Canada, so I said Canada, C-A-N-A-D-A, and I had typed that in, now what's going to happen is that it's going to run this first check. That's, of course, going to test as true. It's going to run that bit of code, and then it's going to skip to the end of the if block. If it turned out that it was Germany, then that would test as false. It would go here, and then again, skip to the end. So it's always going to be whatever the first one is that matches. So it's not going to be like a game of Plinko or anything like that, where it's going to bounce and check and check and check and check and check. It's not. The first one that tests as positive, it's going to run the associated code and then exit out of the if statement.
And that can be really important. In this case, I mean, you're never going to have somebody enter a value that's equal to Canada and Germany at the same time.
Right.
But where that can become really significant is, let's take our example of, hey, you get a free toaster if you deposit more than $100. I'm bringing back my free toaster.
Yay, toasters!
But what if if you donate over $1,000, you get a free TV? If you put it as a deposit. So imagine the situation if I was using elif statements there, and I said, if deposit is over $100, you get a free toaster. And then I say, elif, you deposit over $1,000, you get a free TV. Guess what? They deposit $5,000, and it's going to say, oh, they put in over $100. That was the first condition. It's going to say, oh, you get a free toaster. It's going to exit. And they'll be mad because they want their free TV.
Exactly. So, and I'm kind of sketching this out real quick. Free toaster, elif, deposit greater than 1,000, and then, and I know I'm spacing over. That's a Zoom It thing. Zoom It won't let me do tabs, but in any event, and then free TV. So, of course, here's the catch: is that, just like Susan said, if I deposit, let's say, $4,500, last I checked, in my math anyway, $4,500 is greater than 1,000. So the bit of code that I want to run is going to be that bit right there. Well, which code is going to run? Well, the code that is going to run is going to be that part right there. Why? Well, because 4,500 is greater than 100. So that little bit of code is going to execute, it's going to go down here, and you're going to be stuck with a crummy toaster rather than a brand new TV. So ordering does matter. And Susan talked an awful lot in the prior module about
free toasters.
About free toasters. about going in and testing your code. And this is extremely important, especially in situations like this, because it's so subtle that if you go in and you read it, and you're reading it as a human,
you wouldn't catch it.
It sort of makes sense, exactly, because we're going to really kind of be a bit more flexible. The problem is that the computer is not. It's doing exactly what you told it to do. And that's always the worst kind of bug. The worst kind of bug is when it did exactly what you told it to do. You hate that. And that's exactly what happened here, is that it did exactly what you told it to do. And it said, well, 4,500 greater than 100. We're going to execute that. We're going to go down here. And again, you're stuck with the Crummy toaster.
And this is just another one of those reminders of the importance of doing your testing.
Yeah.
Test those conditions. Test less than 100. Test exactly 100. Test greater than 100. If you've got that elif of 1,000, you also need to test under 1,000, equal 1,000, over 1,000. That's why the testing is absolutely crucial when you start adding these branching conditions into your code, because otherwise you're going to miss it when you do make those mistakes.
Exactly.
It'll happen. You're going to do this. One day you're going to do this, and when you finally figure it out, you're going to go, they told me I was even going to do this mistake, and I can't believe it took me 4 hours to figure it out. And you will. One of you out there is going to literally do that. Go, I watched that video, and they told me I was going to make this mistake.
And sure enough, you did.
But that's why the testing is so essential.
Yep. Now, one last little thing here. Let's go back to the right slide. Highlighter, there we go. The elif statement, you're going to notice, is not indented. And the reason for that is it's just like the else block, is that this is what's going to run if it's Canada, this is what's going to run if it's Guten Tag, this is what's going to run if it happens to be Bonjour. And so that's why the elif is right there.
Oh, by the way, we have a comment somebody in the comments said, oh, already made that mistake. Oh, so there we go. So we weren't lying.
I love your predictive capabilities. Somebody already had, and Susan called it.
Would you like me to suggest some lottery numbers later?
All right. Now, the last little thing is, what happened if somebody entered in something that's outside of the bound? So what would happen if we used Canada, Germany, France, and you entered in Japan, you entered in Italy, you entered in South Africa, you entered in, some other country here? Well, let's sort of kind of talk this thing through. It's going to check the first one. So let's say we entered in Japan. So we'll just say Japan. So you entered in Japan. Country equals Canada. Well, nope, that's not it. Let's go down. If country is Germany, nope, that's not it. Let's go down. If country is France, nope, that's not it. So it's just simply, in this particular case, going to exit out of that if block, because we didn't tell it what to do in the case of Japan.
Right.
Now, of course,
we saw last module, we saw you could use an else, which meant if this condition isn't true, you can also say that for if none of these conditions are true.
That's it. Yeah, you could just add in that else statement to catch everything, well, else. And adding in an else statement, just as a real quick best practice thing, adding in an else statement can be extremely helpful, especially when you are dealing with input from something external, and this could be a file, this could be user input, because it gives you the ability to do two things. That number one, it gives you the ability to display out an error message, hey, this was outside of the range of values, ask the user to try again, but also B, it can be a little bit of a security thing as well, because in this particular case, country, it's not in a range of values that we were expecting, and so that could wind up causing potential issues otherwise. So it's not a bad idea at all when you're dealing with something like that and you've got multiple to add in an if statement, so that way you can display the error message or handle that otherwise, or maybe even set it to whatever you want your default value to be.
Sure.
And then you'll notice down here at the very bottom, you're going to notice I did, let me just erase all my ink. There we go. You'll notice down at the very bottom I've got my else and then print and then aloha, ciao, g'day, ciao. And we'll go from there. I'm having a good time.
Awesome. Go for it.
All right. So let's go in and take a look at a little demo here on our else if. And what I'm going to do is open up Visual Studio. There we go. And let me file new project and Python. And let's go in and complex if statements. And you know what? Let's go ahead and kind of keep having fun with the hockey
Okay.
from before. All right.
Go Sens.
So let's go ahead and say team equals, and then we'll say input, enter your favorite without the U.
Okay. I'll forgive you for that since you're talking hockey.
Hockey team?
I was in. I got to visit Russia last year, and I went to the store for Team Ska, which was kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, man, I had a great time talking hockey with the Russians.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm also going to do a real quick two-upper. As well, just to go ahead and have that. So I'm going to go ahead and say if team equals, and yes, I'm doing this on purpose, let's go in and say Flyers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, that's your favorite team.
That's my favorite team.
That's right.
Now, I've purposefully done this. I've entered in my two little mistakes, kind of as a review, that number one, we need double equals.
That means
that's equality.
Is equal to.
Yep.
Right.
So again, just to differentiate up here, that single, that's the assignment. That doubles, that's checking the equality between the two.
Right.
Okay. And then the second thing is I need my colon.
And that's just syntax. You just have to remember it. And when you forget it, well, you'll go back and go, oh, yeah, I forgot the colon. Don't worry about it. You're going to forget it. When you see the little squiggles and things, you'll go back and you'll fix it.
Exactly. So we'll say if team equals Flyers, we'll go ahead and say print and best team ever. I'm not feeling very creative, so I'm just going to go with that. And then elif team equals Senators. We'll go ahead and say print and then go Sens go, and then elif team equals Rangers, and we'll just simply say go Rangers.
That works. That's fine. You keep it simple for now.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just kind of keep going with that. And then down here at the very bottom, we'll say else, and we'll just simply say print. I don't have...
Oh, you're bringing us back to module 1 there.
I am.
You have the challenge of I have a single quote inside my string, so you've chosen to solve that by using the escape character in front of you. You're bringing us back to like the second module. That's mean when we're this late in the day.
I'm just trying to keep everybody on their
All right.
and I'm really just trying to keep building on what we've already done. Okay. In any event, so there is our basic little statement. I'm going to go ahead and tap on play here, use the touchscreen. We'll go ahead and say Flyers, hit enter. Sure enough, it says best team ever. Hit enter. Let's go ahead and run this again, and let's say Senators, and hit enter, and you'll notice that it'll say
Go Sens, go.
And one real quick thing, I'm going to throw in a breakpoint right here.
Oh,
just
yes.
kind of walk through this, something I always really like to do, and hit start, and then we'll go ahead and say Blackhawks, which I don't have, and I did this one on purpose.
Okay.
So we'll just say Blackhawks and hit enter, and then we'll just come back down to Visual Studio, and we'll just keep hitting that step into. And what you're going to notice is if you keep an eye on the arrow on the right side of my on the right side of the screen, what you're going to notice is that the arrow, I hit it once already, is now on Senators. I'm going to hit it again. It's now on Rangers.
Because it's checking. It's going, it's here. No,
Exactly.
it's not here. Go check the next condition.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's looking for a match, and of course it's going to leave disappointed because there is no match because it's Blackhawks. So you're going to notice that we're now down at
And it's now
at the L
actually
statement.
going to go execute the command in the L statement.
Exactly. Yep. There we go. And so now, there we go. I don't have anything clever to say here, which I don't. Okay, perfect. So there is our else if statements. And again, just to hit the point one more time, keep in mind that the order in which you do your logic, especially when you're dealing with numbers, is extremely important. So make sure that you are going in and doing that testing so that way everything is coming out the way that you expected. One very simple strategy, one very simple technique is if you're using greater than signs, then when you list them, start with the biggest number. And if
that's a
you're
good
using
rule.
less than signs, start with the smallest number. Kind of the simplest way, I think, to go in and approach all of that. Awesome. All right. Now, I will always remember I was in 7th grade here in the U.S., so 13 years old, so whatever the math works out to, wherever it is that you happen to be. And we were going to learn logic in our math class, and our teacher got up in front of the room, and he told a room full of 13-year-olds, I'm going to teach you how to win every argument with your parents.
Oh, that would go over well.
That's a smart teacher. That's knowing your audience. That's what that is, ladies and gentlemen. That is knowing your audience. Of course, immediately we all perked up like, oh yeah, we're ready to go. And so he then started going into the concepts of ands and ors, which is exactly what I'm going to drill into here. And what he said was very simply this, and I'm going to hit this right now, and then we'll dig in and we'll kind of come back and start reviewing this, is you always want to use or. Because if you say, I'm going to go to Steve's house, and I'm going to go to the game, in order for that sentence to be true, in order for what you just said to be truthful, logically speaking, you must have done both of those. So you have to have gone to Steve's, you have to have gone to the game. On the flip side, however, if you say or, I'm going to go to Steve's house or I'm going to go to the game, you could do one or the other and be perfectly truthful, at least as far as logic goes. My parents didn't go for it, by the way.
Didn't work?
No.
Worth a try.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the logic, yeah.
Yep, you know. But that's honestly the way that I always remember this. So, and both sides had to be true, or one side or the other. Keep that right there. I'm going to pull that back out in a couple of minutes, but before we get there, let's go ahead and start talking about a little scenario. So, congratulations. You just won the lottery.
Sweet.
But here's the thing. If you win the lottery, there's obviously a lot of different denominations. I mean, I could go out, I could get a little scratcher, I could, go ahead and scratch it off.
I usually win enough money to pay for the ticket if I win anything. I buy a $4 ticket, and my big win is I win $4.
That's about it.
That's what I usually win, yeah.
That's about it. So did you win the lottery? Technically, yes. Did you win a significant amount of money?
Do I get to retire?
Yeah, do you get to
a life
retire?
of luxury on my $4 win?
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah, you're going to need to use some creative spending in order to be able to retire on $4. I mean, if you can do it, go for it. But yeah, so we really need to test two things there. So, for example, kind of going back to, maybe you're writing a banking app. And so what we need to do is maybe test for two things. That maybe we need to test for the type of account, and we need to test for the deposit amount to determine whether or not we're going to give you that little free prize. So that if you're going with maybe a basic checking account, then we're not going to give you a TV. But if you open up a checking account or a checking and savings, and you deposited $5,000, now we're going to give you that toaster, then both of those have to be true. That's going to require a little bit more complex logic. So, a lot of different scenarios.
Sure.
So I require $5,000 rather than
That's what you need to retire in a life of luxury?
Well, no, for the toaster.
Okay. I thought you were going to retire to a life of luxury if you won $5,000.
$5,000, yeah.
I don't know what currency. I know that U.S. dollars are worth more than Canadian dollars, but I didn't think the exchange rate was that good.
Not these days.
Okay.
All right. So what we need to do is we need to go in and check for a couple of different things. So again, if you win the lottery, only $5. Can't retire on that. If you win $1 million, but if the lottery gives out $1 million but you didn't win it, well, you can't retire.
Yep.
So what we need is we need both of those to be true. We need an and statement here. So we need to have won, and the prize needs to be over $1 million. So. Exactly.
I'll do the movie reference.
Yeah.
$1 million.
$1 million. Thank you.
Sorry, bad movie references. My apologies.
I set you up for that.
You did. Yeah.
Yep. Now, here's the thing. You have to use and here, because what you're doing is you're saying both sides must be true. So you have to have won the lottery, and it has to have been greater than $1 million. So that is where and comes into play. So both won lottery and big win has to have been true.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's not going to execute that. So both of those sides have to be true. Now, one of the things is that this can be a little bit complex trying to figure out, okay, well, when is it actually going to run this? When is it not going to run this? And I love this table that you have here because it breaks it down very simply. That if the first condition is, and the second condition is, that is what the result is going to wind up being. And what I want to highlight here, let me highlight this on the screen, is you're going to notice false, false, and false. Put simply, to summarize all of this in one sentence.
Yep.
If there's a false anywhere, the answer is false.
Yep. When you're using an and statement, everything has to be true for it to be true and to execute the code.
Exactly. Yep. So let's go in, take a look at our real quick and here, and I'm going to open back up Visual Studio, and you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a real quick Control K, Control C.
Right.
Yep.
Comment out that code.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'm going to say sport equals, and we'll say input, and we'll say enter your favorite sport.
Right.
Yep.
There we go, for all of those who prefer cricket or tennis.
Exactly. Yep, that's it. And so we'll go in and do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it relatively straightforward. I'm just going to go with an if statement. Now, here's what I'm looking for. I'm only interested in the hockey team, the Rangers. There's also an MLB team as well, the Rangers. So we have an NHL team Rangers. We have an MLB team Rangers. So I'm only interested if it turns out that we're talking about the Rangers hockey team.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if, and we'll say sport equals hockey and.
Because you know what? Because I know in Ottawa we have a Rangers football team.
Oh, well, there you go.
So it happens.
Yep, it absolutely does. And team equals, and make sure you have your double equals, Christopher. There we go.
Yep, is equal to.
Yep,
right?
Is equal to. And let's go ahead and say Rangers. And then we'll go ahead and say.
Don't you miss Messier? He was an awesome Ranger. He was my favorite. He does these commercials now. He's this great hockey player, and now he does these commercials for things like potato chips. He's got this awesome sense of humor. My favorite commercial was, bet you can't eat just one potato chip. He goes, if I lose, you have to play hockey with us. And it's this guy on the street, and then he has one potato chip, and then they show him, playing shinny hockey with a bunch of guys, and it's just an awesome, He's guy's got a sense of humor. It's awesome.
Well, you gotta love it.
Yeah, I like my professional athletes to, have a good sense of humor. We gotta like those.
Absolutely. Okay. So what I've done here is I've put together a very basic little statement where I said if the sport is hockey and the team is the Rangers, then we're going to go ahead and print out I miss Messier. Otherwise, for right now, I'm just going to say I don't know that team. And so let's go in, hit start, favorite team, and let's go in and say Rangers, and then favorite sport, and let's say baseball. And hit enter, you're going to notice that it says I don't know that team. Now, if I go in and I run this again and I say, come here, I say Rangers and I say hockey and hit enter, now you're going to notice that it prints out I miss Messier because they're both true. That we typed in Rangers and we typed in hockey. Cool. All right, so let's go back to our slides here, kind of keep on keeping on.
Yep.
One of the other things that we might want to check is an or. So I only need one side or the other to be true. So if it's Saturday or if it's Sunday, I can sleep in, assuming that it's not a long run day. So if it's Saturday or if it's Sunday, I can sleep in. If it's raining or snowing, can't bike to work. This is our or statements. And what we're looking to do is looking to test whether or not one side or the other is true. Now, before we get in and take a look at our sample, I want to do a little bit of an English versus logic lesson. Let's imagine that I was building something up that was going to do some form of reporting. Well, it would be very common for a sales manager to come up to me and say, hey, Christopher, I need something that's going to display to me the sales from the Northeast and southeast regions. That's the way that he would say it in English. That's not logic, though.
Ah, that's an excellent point. And yes, this is the kind of thing that gets you when you're writing your code.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because let's think about this again with logic. When we're talking in logic, remember, and I'll go back to the slide here, this perfect slide that Susan put together. You're going to notice with an and statement, they both have to be true. They both must be true, otherwise it's not going to work. So if we're talking about if region equals northeast and region equals southeast, you know how many times that's going to test as true?
Never.
Never.
How can a region be equal to two different values at the same time?
Exactly.
Can't happen.
Exactly. So one big thing to keep in mind when you're sitting down to write your code, and again, this is universal, this is not specific to Python. So if you're doing this in SQL, if you're doing this in C#, keep in mind what you're actually looking for. So if you're looking for one side or the other to be true, so northeast or southeast, you want an or statement. So even though in English, frequently people will say and, listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're trying to communicate, because quite frequently you're going to need an or statement. You're going to need an or. So one side or the other.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, let's go back into, oh, by the way, one last thing. You'll notice again, table. And the big thing that I want to highlight, there we go. You'll notice anywhere where we have a true, 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 true.
Yeah. So if any of the conditions is true, we're going ahead and executing the code if any of those conditions is true.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So now let's go in, do a demo, give me my or statement. Back to Visual Studio. Okay. So now let's go in and tweak things around just a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say,
How about if you're a fan of the Leafs or the Senators, good luck getting the Stanley Cup? I mean, I do love my Sens. I can say that to my Sens because I am a Sens fan, but if we win a Stanley Cup this year, it's going to be a miracle. That's our big trophy, and we've lost a lot of good players. I'm going to be cheering my Sens all season, but I'm not holding my breath for a Stanley Cup this year. I can say it, you can't.
nobody can beat up my brother except for me.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, you can only make fun of yourself.
Okay. So what you're going to notice here, so if the team is the Leafs or the team is the Senators, then we're going to say, good luck getting the cup this year. And so I'm going to leave this the right way first. And let's go in and hit start. Hockey team, Senators, hit enter, sport, hockey, and hit enter. And what you're going to notice here is it's going to say, good luck on getting the cup this year. Now, if I do this, let's go back in. Do a line break here, and let's kind of walk through this logically. We'll say Senators and hockey. Let's kind of talk about what's happening behind the scenes. What you're going to notice, there we go. What you're going to notice is that we're first going to check to see whether or not the sport was hockey and the team was the Rangers. Well, we did type in hockey, but we didn't type in the Rangers. So this is going to test as false. So if I escape out of that and I hit F11, which will actually move us down to the next line, you're going to notice that test is false, so it didn't run it. We're now on the elif statement. So now let's go back in, and now let's do the next check. So the next check is simply looking for the team to be the Leafs or Senators. And if we remember, we typed in Senators, so this part here is going to be true. We've got an or statement, which means that now the entire part is going to be true, which means we're going to run that line. Sure enough, I hit F11, and you'll notice the little arrow. That's the line of code that's now going to get executed. And if I just escape out of that, there we go, I can see the display right there.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. Now, I do want to go in and introduce the error here. I am going to say and. This happens constantly, and again.
Because you'll do it because your brain just thinks of it that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's the way that somebody came up to you and asked it. So I'm going to say Senators, and I'm going to say hockey, and I'm going to hit enter. Oh, and I still have the line breaks. That's okay. I'm just going to F5 through that. There we go. And sure enough, it's just going to say, I don't know that team. Because again, the team can't be two separate values. So be very careful about your ands and about your ors. Awesome. All right, back to slides.
Perfect. So we've got ands, we've got ors.
Yep. Now, how about combining them into a single statement? So, for example, maybe I'm looking to say something about the Rangers, but only if they're hockey, but maybe a team named the Maple Leafs, regardless of the sport that we happen to be talking about. So there could be a cricket team somewhere.
Okay.